All right, so welcome back to part two. So, since I'm in here, I might as well take a little bit more time and embellish it a bit. Let's see here. So, let me just go back to our 3D mouse. That's F2 on the keyboard. So I was thinking, maybe this bump might be just a little bit much. Although we do have full control over the amount inside of Maya. Maybe it's okay. Maybe it's okay. All right, let's go back over to the wall here. Now let's check this out. So I'm gonna just hide the sand and just go into the wall. So we have our layer here. So we do have full control over things like all the same modes that Photoshop has. So I could add in and say an overlay if I wanted it to be just a little bit more see-through, which actually looks pretty good. Maybe that's all. Maybe that's all I wanted to do. But let's see, alphas. Are there any other alphas I could add in that would be interesting? So again, this is where Photoshop really comes in handy. You could create your own really cool looking things to do it up a bit. Maybe I could throw a little bit of a color on the actual pole here, or you know what? We should probably add in a bit of dirt and stuff on the bottom as well. So for that, what I'm going to do is, so this is our stadium. Let's do it as a what's the best thing to do? Let me just go to mud. Do I have a mud texture under? So there are a bunch of mud and dirt materials that you can download, and I'm fairly certain I have some. I might have to dip into my pre-downloaded stuff if I don't have it in here, but let's see, mud. Yeah, brown mud. All right, so let's do that. So I'm going to add that over to the main stadium. Just throw it on top here. Just going to throw it. I'll throw it on everything. Right, which I don't want, but for now, that's kind of cool. Let me just turn down the overall intensity of that, or the scale of it, I should say. So let's just turn the scale down. Cool. And maybe I want a little bit more caked on mud in the corners and things like that. So I'm going to create a mask, just a black mask. And this time I'm going to paint in areas that I want to have. So in this case, a bit different. I'm going to go to the mud mask, and I'm going to right click and go to add paint. And this way I can paint in the mask. So I can go into my brushes and maybe isolate dirt. And there's a good dirt brush, like dirt splatters and things like that. Maybe I'll bring in a smaller brush. And then I can start kind of going in and adding in like the darker areas around where the columns are and things like that. So this is a must when you're, especially if you want to go into surfacing down the road, just the same. So now you can see it's kind of pushing in a little bit. So what I want to do is I want to go to the height for the actual texture. And there's a bunch of things we can do. So let me just move this over. Let me see, dirt roughness. What does this do? I want it really, probably pretty variation in detail, color, sure. All right, so I want to go under the technical parameters. Typically that's where height is. And I do want to change the height so it's sticking out. There's 0. Yeah, it's kind of definitely pushing in. I want it the opposite. So that's going that way, and this, there we go. I want it kind of pushed out a bit. Cool. All right, so let's go back over here. We got our paint layer. I'm going to click on it to get back into it. And if I had if I had my tablet up and running, this would be a bit easier to do. But so I'm just going to go in and try to kind of cake it on in just kind of natural ways, just around the edging. I'm not going to be too consistent all the way across, just something that looks kind of natural. Cool. All right, like right over here is maybe not so good, so I would just go to the mask, reduce it, and increase that up, and then there we go. That looks a lot better. Maybe just go through there just a bit too. I'm back up to 4K, so it updates a little bit slow. Let me go back to 2K or 1K. It'll be a lot faster to update. You know, it won't look quite as good, but it'll be faster. Cool. All right, there we go. That's much faster. Let's do an autosave. I'll just let it do its thing. Hopefully I didn't push a button while I was doing that and it's crashing. I'll just pause the recording while it's doing that. All right, we're back in here. So that's not looking too bad. You know, we could go in and if I wanted to, with the actual color that we added there. So that was under here, the stadium wall. You know, we did do the overlay thing for the base color. We could go in and change the levels too if we wanted to. There's a hue saturation. If I right click on it, we do have this levels thing. We could go in and base color, that's it. And we can, you know, RGB, we can increase or decrease these things. So you can see it's kind of tweaking that. And I can just bring it down a little bit more subdued, a little bit more natural. That's kind of cool. So actually, what was I doing? Alphas. Let me go back to the alphas here. And I wanted to add in something kind of interesting, but I don't know what. So something futuristic. Maybe something like this guy. Let me go over to projection and grab this one again. There we are. So remember, control, left drag, I can rotate this around. Cool. And let's see if I go in and just click on this here. It's kind of cool. Maybe a central, some kind of central thing. It's kind of a neat pattern. Again, you know, I'm not going to spend too much time on this thing, but let me go back to 1 on the keyboard. That goes back to our brush. Cool. That's looking cool. All right. Looks neat. Yeah, so the seats, you know, I think that's fine. You never really see it. Most of this could be out of focus anyway. You get the hints of detail through the depth of field. This guy here, though, maybe I want to go in and work on that beam. So let's see this. And that's in a separate area, so that's the concrete. I should probably create a folder for this as well. So I'll call this one divider or something like that. Divider. Cool. I'll just throw that under there. And you know what? I should probably copy the mask over to that as well. So let's do that. So I'll just add in a mask, black mask, and I'm going to take this guy and I'm going to copy the mask, and then I'm going to paste the mask. And I'm going to remove the original mask. You know, it's fine if I keep it, but I'll just remove it just to clean things up. So let me see here, remove mask. There we are. So now I can just keep adding stuff under this folder and it won't trickle through to any of the other pieces here. All right, so let's do that. I'm going to go with more of a blue color, I think, on this, some kind of color. So we got all these things turned on. I'm going to add in a layer. Height, color, maybe roughness and metallic. And I think that's pretty good. Let me see, height, I'm going to go a little bit higher. Roughness and metallic, I think that's pretty good. And I think I'll go with a different color though, maybe like red. Reddish. Cool. That's really shiny. That's really metallic. Here, let me go a little bit less mirror-like. A bit more like that. Cool. Cool. All right, and let's choose a better thing for that. Maybe blue. Maybe I should go blue. I don't know. I'm just gonna go. That's kind of neat, but that's not what I want. I want to go straight across. So I'm gonna use the. turn down the height a little bit too. I'm going to use the 4, which is, not 4, 3, which is the projection. Yeah, so, yeah, I should have just changed it here. So let's see, I got this, height, I think all that stuff is cool. So I'm not going to go this way, although that looks kind of neat, especially with that little arrow design up at the top. It's kind of cool. Maybe I will do that. What does that look like? Oh, that's really subdued. Now, why is that so very subdued there? Yeah, so definitely, yeah, it definitely needs to go in there. I think maybe the opacity of my color is really low. That's why. No, why is that so not what I want? It definitely feels like it's definitely gets better every time I kind of layer over it. All right, so let's undo that. Let's try this again. So back over here. Yeah, I don't know if red's the color though. I think we're gonna have to go maybe blue or something like that. So back to number 3. Yeah, this blue is kind of cool. Yeah, let's see, barcodes. There must be something better. Again, I don't want to spend too much time on it, but you know, since I'm in here, I might as well. Ooh, that one's a cool one. I wish I knew about that one earlier. So I could just do that and just kind of every time I push the button, it gets darker. So I could just kind of push it a few times there. That's kind of cool. But this one's neat because if I reduce that down and then rotate it, again, it's kind of like that Thor Ragnarok kind of patterning. It kind of just goes to nothingness though. Unless I were to invert it. But maybe do a better job of matching it up. There we go, that's kind of cool. And then maybe just put in a solid or something at the bottom. Neat. Neat. All right. And then, you know, we could add in some mud and stuff like that. I could even take the mud layer from the sand, or where is that? The wall blocks, the mud. I could take it from the stadium right here. Copy that, Control C, paste it under the divider. I can remove this, so I could just remove the paint layer. So remove effect. I can create a new paint layer. So I'm just doing this through right-clicking. There we go. Oh, that's a generator. A generator would be awesome too. We can do some cool stuff with that. All right, and let's see here. Add paint, and I could just go in and just with a finer brush. Now remember, this is only 1K, so it'll be much more detailed if we were to go into a higher resolution. So I could. It's tricky getting along there though. I might need to paint it over. There we go, just so it goes through the ground. And you know, this is where having a brush with pressure sensitivity comes in handy. Let me just make sure this is going under the divider. Cool. I could do one with an inverted detail and stuff like that, and you know, you can go to town with that. This stuff I could erase a little bit too, so I got my paint layer, and I could do it a bunch of ways. Let's say I want to keep it, but I just want to experiment. I could just add a mask to it, right, like a white mask. And then I could just paint more grayscale, so I could go into my brushes, Yeah, sorry, I'm going off on a bit of a tangent here. Oh, there's cracks. So, we could add in. Oh, I thought I added in a white layer. Let me just do this again. Add white mask. There we are. So I could add in some, cracks and things like that. Yeah, those don't look so good though. Yeah. Let me go back to dirt. Dirt. Dirt cracks, crystals, dirt. There. And just because I'm not using my tablet, let me just reduce the stroke opacity just so I can layer it in a bit. So again, this is 1K, right? So it's going to look a lot better if I were to go in and up the... Oh, it's 2K. It's still going to look 2 times as good if I go into 4K. It'll just take a second to load up. Let me just pause it for a second while it's doing that. Cool. Actually, it doesn't look much different. But let me just go in and maybe stroke opacity could be a bit more. So I'm just kind of breaking things up a bit. Just gotta be careful because it's going to be consistent on every panel. That looks pretty good. All right, not so bad, not so shabby. Now we do have separation between the seats and the bottom parts, but if we're going to go with that brick type of thing, that should be okay. Yeah, now there are some generators we could do to do distressed edges and stuff like that, but maybe I could just do one quick one here. So under layers, this is the divider. So I'll add a solid fill layer in for this one. There we go. So this is under the divider. Let me see. Yeah, under the divider. So just give it a second to calculate. There we go. And maybe I want some chipped distressed edges. Now, right now it's white. It could be whatever color you want it to be. But what I can do is I could right click on this and then add a generator. So let's see what happens when we do this. So with the generator, we could click on the generator type, and we could either use one of these, or we could use a smart mask too, which would be kind of cool. So let's see, metal edges, we got drippings. Yeah, that's not so good. No, that's because we have all these things turned on. Let's just go color maybe. And then what I could, there's a bunch of things I could do. I could turn that on to multiply. So that way, it's going to be a little bit more drippings on top, or I can invert that if that's not quite what I want. So let's go in here. We'll actually go in drip intensity, spreading. We can do a bunch of things here. Just to give it a bit more change. And it doesn't have to be black, maybe it could be a different color, but drop samples, drop intensity. Let's see, height, sure. We just have to change the height amount. And we could just do this right here. So we can switch between the different levels here. So under height, I could go in here and I could start tweaking that a little bit. But I do feel like I want to invert this. So where's inverts? Right here. There we go. So that's kind of interesting, but it's not quite what I want, right? I don't want this all completely dark here. So maybe this isn't even the right generator I want to go with. Let me see. Let's get rid of that one. Let's try a different one. Curvature dirt. We could try a dirt generator. And again, you can see it's kind of picking up the edges here, which is kind of cool. Dirt level, we could probably reduce that a little bit. There we are. Dirt contrast. That looks a bit better. Cool. Alright, so that's looking pretty neat. And then, you have all the dynamic brushes and things like that as well, which are kind of cool. If you want to do kind of dripping oil and things like that. Where are you? Particles. So we got leaks. leak heavy and leak. So let me see here. Let me just go into a regular layer. This is under the divider still. Color, you know, I could switch the color, maybe something a bit darker. And then we can just go in and run over this. Let's see, is it going to do it? Let me see if I can remember how this is done again. I'm pretty sure I just kind of paint it on and it should just happen. I forget. I'll come back to that. It's been a while since I've used this one. I know there's a bit more to it, and I swear you just kind of paint it on. But it's eluding me. I wonder if it's through a mask, maybe. Anyhow, we'll have to come back to that one. All right, so let's say, you know, this is good. We're ready to move on. You know, if you wanted a little bit of a denser area around where the character might be standing, which is over here, you could always duplicate one of the dirt, just kind of have it in this smaller area and then just kind of fade it off with a mask so that it's just kind of a bit more dense or compacted around where you would need it. So next thing we're ready to do is export our textures. So for this, we're going to go over to File, Export Textures. We're going to make sure we're choosing our redshift, and let me just make sure I've got the right one selected. So we've got this one that has color, height, normal maps, metalness, roughness, some emission. So, you know, we're not using an something that's emitting light, but that's okay. And then color is up here. So I think this is good. We'll just go with this one. So let me make sure that that's the one being selected, and I'm also selecting the right directory, source images, that's the one. PNG 8-bit, that's okay. And redshift, there it is. And let's just make sure the naming is right, Stadium Low. And it's the same name, which is good, which means my UDIMs will work. So that's cool. And there we go. So I'll just pause it while it's exporting. It should only take a few seconds though. Oh, look, it's already done. Cool. And we should probably save it as well. That's done. So save. All right, so let's go back over to Maya. So we've already got our file here from earlier. So I'm going to start by just creating my redshift material. So I'm just going to grab everything, slap one material on it. Because we're using UDIMs, it'll automatically properly separate everything out. So let me go into there. Let's give it a name, I guess. So we'll call this one Stadium MTL. I already have a Stadium MTL, so I'll just call this RS for redshift. And we're going to go into our Hypershade, and let's load that material in. Cool. So first thing I'm going to do is just bring up a file texture. There you are. And we're going to load in the first one, so which will be the color. It doesn't matter which UDIM you grab, any of them is fine. Just make sure you turn on UDIMs, Mari. There we are. sRGB. It's found 5 tiles, so that's correct. And we're going to connect that. So that's just going to go to our color slot. Oops, oh, shoot, what did I do? To the color slot. Right there. And I missed. Cool. Oh, and just give it a second. It's 4K texture, so that takes a little bit of time to load in. Because it's such a big arena, you know, maybe an 8K texture might have been good after all. All right, so we've got this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select these two guys, so both the placement node and the file texture. I'm just going to do a duplicate shading network, and what that's going to do is it's going to duplicate the connection. But the bonus is that, you know, it remembers the paths. Now, because my project is set, to be honest, actually, I probably won't have an issue with this anyway. I could just go in and just change the names if you know how to spell roughness and metalness, which I do know how to do, but it's eluding me at the moment. So that's okay. So let me go into roughness. It's a UDUM. UDUMs are on, so all these settings are set. I want to make sure it's set to raw though. And in the shader, we're going to make sure that GGX is turned on. And IOR, we're going to switch that to metalness. So for roughness, we're going to just drag this guy over into the roughness here. There we go. And again, let me just grab these two guys and duplicate them. So I just hit the G key to duplicate the entire shading network. And I'm going to go down to the metalness section, and this one is going to go there. So again, this one's going to be metalness. Right here. Now be careful. Whenever you duplicate or create a new texture, even though this was set right originally, it always seems to pop back. Not always, but 90% of the time snaps back to our sRGB. So you do have to switch it back to raw. And again, we're just going to middle drag that into our metalness section there. Cool. Now we need to do the displacement and the normal map. So for the normal map, it is a custom node, so I'm going to hit the tab key, type in the word normal, and RS normal map. There we go. That's what we want. But we don't want it as a projection. Let me get rid of these guys. This is the node we need though, so that's fine. So when you type in the word normal, if I could type it in a second time, just make sure you're using this one, which is basically this node. So we're good. Actually, I'll use this one though, it has the placement. All right, so let's connect this guy. First of all, let's grab the shader, source images, normal. Alrighty, and then that should all be good. I'm going to go in and place this under overall, under bump map, right there. And you could also just connect it directly right there, but I'm just going to drag and drop it for now. There we are. And then lastly, we just have to do the displacement map. The displacement is going to need some fine tuning, so maybe we should turn on the IPR before we start doing that. I'm going to save so I don't have to do any of these connections again. And I'm going to do an IPR. So before doing the IPR, I would suggest getting some better lighting than the default. The default lighting is going to look pretty garbagey. Well, just so we can see what it looks like, let's check it out. So I'm going to do an IPR. Yeah, already you can see it's looking kind of garbagey because I don't even know if this is the right scene that we used. Looks a bit different. So what is going on with this? Number 3. That's okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the same FBX file that I had exported, just in case this one is slightly different. So let me do this. Get rid of that. And go File, Import, and I'm just going to grab under Scenes the proper FBX. Should be exactly the same. I don't know why it was a little bit different there. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to right click and go assign to viewport selection. Now there is a chance that maybe UDUMs, UDUMs aren't turned on the normal map because we actually have to do that manually. So to do that, get rid of the number and then you do the greater than and less than brackets and you just type in the word UDUM. Alright, so that's done. Now what about these guys? What's their story? Okay, I'll just take a second to load all those into memory. Alright, so let's see, UDUMs are turned on. Yeah, that's good. UDUMs are turned on. Oh, this one doesn't have UDUMs. Oh, it does. It's loaded. Weird. It's not red. That's okay. Probably because it generated a preview already. So let's try this again. Let's go into our IPR. There we go. Yeah, I don't know what was causing it not to work before. Just probably a different model that I had open by accident. I probably shut down the wrong version of Maya. So as you can see, it's looking pretty pretty garbaggio. So, you know, it's really flat and gross. So what we want to do, first of all, let's just bring in some nice HDRI lighting, similar to what we had in Substance. I'm going to create a dome light, which instantly will make it look a little marginally better. And then, you know, I could use the exact same image that I had in Substance Painter, which was Panorama. And this will be, you know, a little bit closer to what was there. So I could go in and, you know, tweak the rotation of that just to angle the lighting. It's a Coliseum, though. Sometimes for that type of set, instead of like a bright field-like lighting, I'll go with maybe one of these more Moroccan style, Middle Eastern kind of streetscapes with the brownstone type of buildings, like this type of thing, villa. All right, so that's looking pretty cool. And then let me go in and hide that. So under environment, there we are. Cool. And then we just have to go in and add in our displacement, and then we should be getting a little bit closer. Now, you know, it's not ideal just yet. Part of it maybe is the camera too. It'd be cool if we had a bit of a wider angle. Let me just go in and do that. So angle of view 35 millimeters is okay, but if we want to go a bit more cinematic, maybe a wider angle camera might be cooler. It's a little bit better. And let's try out the displacement. So let me just keep that open over there. We're going to bring this back over here. Because don't forget, right now we're just looking at the low-res geometry, which is super low. And then we have our normal, this guy, the shading group. We're going to go under Redshift, under the displacement shader. Now, technically, you could use either this one or the Redshift one. It doesn't make a difference, I don't think. Let me grab a file. And we'll come back and change this in a second. But first of all, let's grab the displacement, which is the height field. Open that up. Let me see, sRGB. Nope, it's got to be raw. And yeah, let's go over here. All right, so we're not really going to see too much of a difference just yet. We do have to go into each of the three pieces. And there is a faster way to do this. I won't bore you with that, but we just have to turn on tessellation and displacement for each of the pieces. Whoops, not visibility, but tessellation and displacement. All right, you can see things kind of blew up, which is fine. You know, that's fine. We're going to fix that. So let's go under the displacement material. First thing we're going to do is shift it so that gray, 50% gray is the middle value, so negative 0.5 to positive 0.5. Next thing we're going to do is lower the scale because it's just way too big at the moment. So I could either do that here. Old range actually, sorry, is 0 to 1. The new range would be 0.5 to negative 0.5 to 0.5. Cool. Now let's just change the scale. So let's go start off with a 0.1. We're just getting there. It's still obviously way too bumpy. So let's go down to like a 0.01. And that's looking a lot better. Yeah. Cool. Now I can see that because it's smoothing and I didn't do such a good job at subdividing, you know, I am getting some errors here and there, and it's also too big. The displacement, if I can speak, is still way too big. So maybe we can't really get away with too much displacement. I think we can get away with it on the ground, but I don't think we can get away with it up here. I'm gonna have to keep this low res, just because I didn't properly loop it out and whatnot, so it can't really be smooth, which is fine. The ground's the important thing. So to do that, So I've got displacement turned on for the ground. Let me increase this back up just a little bit more for the ground. And then on this piece of geometry here, I'm just going to disable displacement and tessellation. There we are. That looks pretty good. Cool. All right. Not too bad. Not too bad. And then, you know, we can start playing with depth of field. I do have a video on how to dynamically link depth of field, but I might as well just talk about it right here as well. So I can go in and let's see here. I'm going to create a locator, or actually not a locator, sorry. I'm going to go to my measure tools. I'm going to create a distance tool, and I'm just going to create two locators. There we are. One locator. So let me just go under this, so Q key. One locator, what I'm going to do is I'm going to constrain it to the whatever camera I'm using. So maybe in this case the perspective camera. So I'll select the perspective camera first, locator 1 second, and constrain that. So constrain point. The default for point will automatically snap it to the pivot of the other object, so that's what we want. And then for the other one, what we want to do is take this guy and we're going to put it wherever our focus is going to be. So let's pretend it's this cube floating here in space. Cool. All right. So you can see as I'm moving around, this value dynamically changes. And that's basically the focal distance, so the distance that we need to know. So anything at that value will be in focus, and anything in front or behind that will fall out of focus, essentially. But, you know, that's if we want to numerically enter that in, which we probably don't. We want to have it drive it automatically. So wherever I put this, it'll just automatically change our focus. So the focus is under the camera. It's down here under depth of field. Got to turn it on. This is under the shape node. So I'm just going to go into our node editor. So Windows, node editor. And here we are. Here's the shape node. I'm going to open that up. So hit the 3 key. And this is the focal distance right here. This is the value we need to kind of dynamically change. So I'm going to grab our distance tool and I'm going to add that. So click the plus sign here. And I'm going to open that up. So we're looking for the distance, which is right there. And we're going to connect that over to the focus distance. So let me just drag and drop this. Distance to focus distance, if it lets me do it. Distance to focus distance. There we go. Good stuff. So now, if we look at our very kind of low-res render here, you can see that this cube here, let me just move it down a little bit more into frame. This cube is going to stay in focus, and everything else is going to kind of drift out of focus, essentially. So we can change how much focus there is, or how little focus there is, through the settings. So let's go under select camera. So right now this is a 5.6 f-stop. You know, if you want a shallower focus, you could go smaller. But you know, that already looks pretty shallow. I might actually want to go a little bit higher, like maybe a 7 or a 10 or something like that. And then the region of scale, so this is the scale around the object. So the larger that is, the more it kind of widens the focal area around the object in a plane, in a horizontal plane. So let me see, maybe 2. Cool. All right, so we do have some stuff out of focus back there. So let me go in and do a bit more of a finalized render on this, see what this looks like. Let me kind of get a better angle on here. Maybe shift, let me just shift this stuff over. Cool. All right. And you know what? Maybe I want to turn on a little bit of GI, perhaps. So let's do that. And just tweak our render settings so that they're better. You know, definitely do an ambient occlusion, AOV. Usually I do that through custom. So let's see, Redshift. I'll just up it a little bit just for now. Turn on some GI. Use whatever GI settings your prof asks you to use. I just use brute force. And again, ambient occlusion, AOV is not the one I would choose. I would use this guy, custom. And then I would add the shader through here. I just find it gives you a better result. So ambient, and it's under Redshift. Cool. So that way when it renders, you know, you've got ambient occlusion for cast shadows and things like that. All right, now, you know, maybe it's a little bit too out of focus. We could always tweak that a bit. And maybe, you know, this ground plane could be a little bit better in terms of the amount of detail. Cool. All right, that's looking cool. We should do some dynamic flags, mount them on top of the post or something. That would be pretty awesome too. But, you know, that could be a video for another day, perhaps. And then tweaking the lighting, you know, maybe I should tweak the lighting just a smidge too. All right, so I guess that's that. It's pretty straightforward. You know, I'd spend a little bit more time playing around with it. Definitely maybe adding in a bit of a better division between this and the ground with like a dirt buildup and things like that. You could definitely bring in little poly rocks and things, and I'd consider adding in like little spikes or some kind of extra little bits, like maybe giant flags kind of mounted every other row that are kind of blowing in the wind. That would be very cool looking, I think. And if you're interested in that, just let me know. I could do another video on that. Cool. All right, so I'm going to stop the recording there. There's 2 parts, so let me know if you have any questions from that. And where did the recording go? All right, cheers. Bye.